Welcome. This is our second live, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Second Live Forever Young Radio live.
That's
Welcome,
right.
everybody.
Yes. So welcome. We are doing our Live Forever Young Radio live. This is our second show. Kind of started from our podcast that we've have. It's called Live Forever Young Radio. You can check it out, liveforeveryoungradio.com. And it also basically have 72 different podcasts that we've done.
Yeah.
And we started thinking to ourselves, hey, it's fun sitting in a room and talking to each other, but why not join some people in on live?
Yeah.
So we went ahead and set up YouTube Live, and we have Facebook Live running to both of our channels. So go check us out. YouTube, it's called Boomer Wellness or Boomer Products. And then our Facebook is Boomer Wellness Network. And our other one is Live Forever Young Radio. Our other Facebook is Live Forever Young Radio. So check it out. But yeah, what we're doing today, we're going to be talking about Easter, man.
Yeah, Easter and new beginnings.
Absolutely. As you can see down at the bottom of the screen, we're going to be talking about the origins of Easter, the new beginnings and opportunities that it brings to us, and how we can embrace them and get the most out of them, right?
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting, Raleigh. I love the research that you did about
Yes.
the beginning of Easter and where it all came from. I think if we started with that first and then talk about, mindset and developing a mindset for the springtime.
You got
in order to get moving forward for the rest of the year. You had said earlier, say people have New Year's resolutions.
Yes.
And then they tend to peter out after a couple of months. Well, now a couple months has gone by. Let's have a refresh.
Exactly.
And no better time than the Easter season and to get going anew.
You can basically look at this as a new beginning if you didn't get your resolution where you wanted it to be, because in a lot of religions right now is the beginning of their new year, right? And Christianity right now is the new year in the church. So if you kind of want a new beginning and you didn't do so well in the beginning of the actual new year, now you can use this as your mulligan, I guess you could say, your redo.
Yeah.
Bob plays golf. He knows what that means. All right. So guys, some cool stuff we learned. So one of the things I wanted to share with everybody is that we have Andrew Hahn. I found an interview with a gentleman named Andrew Hahn, and he's the head of the historians team at English Heritage. Okay. So they were doing an interview with this guy, and we were wondering, I was talking to Bob, I was like, why the bunny and why the eggs? And like, Easter bunnies don't lay eggs. It's chickens that lay eggs, right? So like, where does that come from, and why do we hide them? And so I said, you know what, I could probably Google it and find it. So I did. So some of the things we found out. So pagan influences, kind of like we were talking about with St. Patrick. I did a show with St. Patrick. One of the things St. Patrick did is he used the pagan beliefs of the Irish people to kind of work in the Christianity thing, right? He used a lot of the symbols and stuff they recognized to kind of work it in with Christianity. And so pagan influences for Easter actually are very common. What we know is the Easter has a lot of origins from pagan beliefs. It comes from a lot of traditions that are actually much earlier than the onset of Christianity.
Yeah, a couple thousand years.
Right.
Like the Sumerians.
Yes, right. If you go back far enough to the Sumerians is where we're talking. And through the line, through the traditions, while Christianity focuses on Christ and the resurrection, believers of pagan religions actually focus on more of the natural world, kind of like, with the fairies and the imps we were talking about for the Irish people. Same thing here. Pagans focus on earth when it renews itself, and they celebrate with resurrected life in the spring, right? So the springtime is their new beginning. The pre-Christian pagan period contains many stories about resurrection, just like, a lot of Christian stories do. For example, like Bob was saying, about 2,000 years before Christ, the Sumerians in Mesopotamia had a tradition around the goddess Inanna. My daughter's name is Alana, and I call her Nana all the time.
Okay.
So Inanna, who descended into the underworld during winter and was brought back to life once the winter ended. So that's kind of one of the things that they carry over in that idea of rebirth in spring. It's very central to traditions going right back to the very early days of civilization, Hahn said. The story is going through all these different religions that have this idea of rebirth in the spring, which is very, very closely linked to the Christian tradition. The name of Easter actually is involved with that. While some cultures refer to the holiday through variations of its Latin name, Pascha, many others refer to it by a name that originated in Northern Europe traditions called Easter. So Easter is linked to the pagan springtime goddess Eostre. I actually have a picture of her I wanted to show you guys. It is right here. So here is a picture of Eostre. And according to Hahn, this is the goddess that they named Easter after. It's celebrated during the spring equinox. Like we talked about on a previous show, the spring equinox marks a lot of these new beginnings for Christianity and other religious beliefs around the world. So Eostre, Eostre is how it's spelled, was first documented in the 8th century and is associated with some Easter traditions that have lasted to this day, especially the name. So there she is, Eostre, very beautiful. So Easter, like we talked about in our other show about the equinox, Easter falls on the first Sunday, Bob, after the first full moon of the vernal equinox, or the first day of spring. So that happened, what was that, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
2 weeks ago. Because Easter is timed to this lunar calendar, every year Easter varies from day to day. The days aren't always the same. That's why you always are like, wait, what month is Easter in this year? Is it March? Is it April? And my mom's birthday is around March 31st, and my daughter's is around March 21st. So like this year, we waited to celebrate them all on Easter. My mom likes to do that for some reason. I don't know why. I think it's easier to throw one party instead of 3. Yeah. So anyway, then the other thing we were looking at is eggs, right? Like why do we choose to use brightly colored eggs? Actually, I have another picture, some eggs we dyed right here. So like eggs have played a starring role in Easter due to their ancient association with fertility and new life, obviously, right? According to Hahn, eggs have been associated with Easter from the very early days of Christianity. Christians in the Middle East would dye these hard-shelled items around the period of Easter and then actually give them as gifts to each other, right? So this goes back a long time. Now, when you look at Western churches and Western religions, the practice of hunting these eggs, which is, I don't know about you, but the church that I go to, they always have an Easter egg hunt. So that actually came from our Protestant reformer, Martin Luther. According to our historian, Hahn, Martin Luther organized egg hunts for his congregation in which the men were the ones who hid the eggs, right? And then the women and children were sent to find them. And this was kind of to echo the story of when Mary found Jesus, didn't find Jesus in the tomb after he had resurrected, right? So the woman, Mary, found the new life that Jesus had resurrected, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where that whole Easter egg hunt tradition began, was from Martin Luther, right? So much like Easter eggs, we always want to understand, why do the bunnies hide them? Why are the bunnies hiding eggs? They don't even lay eggs, right? Bunnies they don't do that. So much like Easter eggs, the tradition of the Easter bunny is centuries old. And it's actually one that's tied to rabbits and hares being ancient symbols of fertility, just like the eggs, right? Fertility, new birth, spring, It all goes together. Rabbits and hares are associated with fertility, particularly in the spring, a time of the year when life returns, like we talked about, return of life that is then linked to the resurrection, right? The earliest known reference to an Easter bunny was actually what they call an Easter hare. The reference is found in a 1682 book by German George Frank von Frankenau, who links hares and rabbits with Christianity. He links them by saying an earlier tradition in Central Europe that is coming from the hares associated with fertility and the Virgin Mary. And then he referenced a picture, and I actually found this picture. Sometimes you see the paintings of the Virgin Mary, and you see a hair at one of her sides. So I found this picture to see if that was true. And then, yeah, right there, we got a little bunny. She's actually holding the little bunny there. Well, a hare, technically. So that's kind of where the whole idea of the bunny comes from, right?
Cool.
So we found this old picture and we're like, hey, this makes sense. So this is what Andrew's talking about, right? This is one of the ones I found. Eventually, the traditions involving Easter hares and eggs came together, right? So you have people doing Easter egg hunts at church, right? And then the whole idea of the bunny, well, we might as well say that the bunny hides them. So I guess the bunny took the man's job, remember? Because it used to be the man's job to hide the eggs. So I guess we've been reduced to bunnies, Bob.
Yeah, the bunnies were more cuddly and fluffy than a hare. And that's why they kind of replaced it in the United States.
Yep.
They're like, okay, it's bunny. And then later the Europeans adopted the bunny.
Right. The
Easter
hares,
bunny.
The Easter hares are a little bit more gangly and they're not as cute and fluffy, right? So then that's actually where we were going. As soon as this kind of got outside of Germany, in America, we decided to kind of give it a makeover. And so we started associating the bunny with Easter. And then eventually it made its way back to Europe. And then the Europeans adopted back the idea of the Easter bunny. And so it kind of came full circle. It was kind of pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
So that is kind of what we talk about when we think of spring, right? You think of Easter, you think of the eggs and the bunnies and the new life and the new beginnings. And because of it, in my opinion, it's just a great time to be alive.
Yeah.
You know,
it's a celebration of the new beginning, and it's a opportunity for people to be immersed in the joyousness of the resurrection and to get this feeling that now's the time to really pick things up, get started, be joyful, celebrate, be grateful. And so all the bright colors associated with the Easter eggs,
right,
like that. And
now, when you also think about it too, I mean, this isn't something I looked up, but these people just went through probably very harsh winters, right? So if you think about centuries ago, it was probably very difficult to actually survive a winter. They didn't have heat and AC and things like that. They were trying to survive, right?
Yeah.
And so the fact that they made it through these trying months and then they are greeted with this beautiful warm rebirth from the sun and all the new plants and flowers and birds. It's kind of a lot like we were talking about in a prior show with when you have the time change, right? When you go from when it's been real dark and gloomy in the winter and everything's one color, not very bright, that can kind of cause people to get a little depression. You can kind of get down. And then you're greeted after months of being isolated and it's cold, so you don't want to go outside. You don't get to see a lot of people. That can lead to depression too. You're greeted with the spring and all this new life and the ability to
and more sunlight
and the ability to go outside. So sorry guys,
more sunlight because of daylight savings time,
right? And
so
you get many benefits. We talked about the fact that when you do get the sun, the benefits for your health are amazing. You talk about the color green all the time.
Yeah, and the other thing that people can realize about the winter time, and this can kind of be a reframe as you're coming up to the springtime, there's lots of beautiful colors in the wintertime.
That's true.
And I used to live in upstate New York where it was winter for quite a long time. But it's at that time when you can see colors that you can't really see during the spring because there's no leaves on the trees, so you can see the beautiful white of the birch tree. You can see the beautiful red of different plants like euonymus that are covered in leaves during the spring. And so people can notice these beautiful colors in the winter. It gives you a lift. And then in springtime, it's almost like, okay, we're saying goodbye to that red and that white. And now we're saying hello to the green and all the beautiful flowers.
It's true.
And the flowering of these trees is also a sign of life. Now the bees come to pollinate the everything with their beautiful symbiotic system that takes nectar and transfers it over here and fertilizes the actual plants.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
so that's a sign of
with-
rejuvenation.
without bees,
You ever seen it?
you know, if you've seen bees and you've seen them work, I don't know, like I have a garden and I go out there and I will actually watch butterflies and I'll watch bees. And if you've actually seen them work, they do a lot. And if we didn't have bees and we didn't have the ability to fertilize and pollinate with them, we would be in a world of hurt. And it's really nice to see that type of life after winter.
Mhm.
It's really nice to be reminded of those things, you know.
Yep. And this is time for optimism, right? This is time when people can put aside what might have been dragging them down. And this year in 2023, there was a lot of negativity at the beginning of the year that was in the news.
Mhm.
Now, not everyone watches the news. Some people are not affected by the goings on in society, whether it's a war or a spy balloon or whatever is causing, this global anxiety. But now is a time to say, okay, we understand that all those things are going on. What has it done to me, if anything? And what can I do to get back on track with my optimism?
Mhm.
And so you have to recognize, you have to notice your thoughts. So first thing in the morning when you wake up, it's like, what are you telling yourself? Are you telling yourself this is going to be a great day? Or are you telling yourself that you're dreading this coming day because you're not sure what's going to be coming next that's negative, right? And Raleigh, we talk about having joyful anticipation of the future.
Yes,
Right.
I love
And-
that phrase.
And so as you notice your thoughts, and you want to be aware, that you're aware. So you can say, hey, I'm an aware being. I'm aware of what's going on with my thoughts. I'm aware of what's going on in society, but I'm not going to let my own disposition be dictated by what's going on in society.
Mm.
I can have my own paradise that I choose, that I can craft and create, that can run as a program in the foreground. And if there's stuff going on in society, I can choose to make that background noise that is not my primary representational system, one of negativity versus one of joyful anticipation, gratitude for the moment, and joy for the future.
Right. Yeah. See, I think when we try to focus on the positive, one of the things you always say is don't be an awfulizer. You know, and an awfulizer is someone who is that person who wakes up and dreads that day and doesn't look at the things that make you grateful, right? We talk about gratitude and how gratitude's extremely important because it actually has a physical connection, right? From the heart to the amygdala,
Yeah.
right? We talk about that a lot.
Mhm.
And if you are awfulizing, that connection isn't healthy.
Yeah. I have a friend that I spoke to yesterday. We call him G. And G is a person that carries a little leather-bound notebook with him everywhere he goes.
Mhm.
It's almost like a woman carrying a purse, but he's carrying his notebook.
That's
And
good.
it's his gratitude journal. He
Oh,
starts with
okay.
it in the morning when he wakes up. He writes what he's grateful for, and he carries it with him just in case, a gratitude emotion breaks out.
Really?
Yeah.
And he writes it down
And
at
then
that
he
moment?
stops, he pauses at that moment and writes down that he's grateful for this. So what he's doing essentially
Yeah.
is the equivalent of people using a heart math device,
Yes.
right? Or a person who's just practicing to make sure that they're not an awfulizer. So they say that in the United States anyway, the research shows 95% of the time people are of the belief that things are not okay.
Yeah.
Only 5% of the time do you believe things are okay.
Mm.
This creates a feedback loop that perpetuates itself. And what G is doing with his gratitude notebook is he's making constant affirmations and he's making constant pattern interrupts. So if something starts to feel negative and he starts to think that things are not okay, boom, gratitude, writes it down, he's back on track.
That's nice.
And so he is the type of person who is not of the opinion that things aren't okay 95% of the time, because he's forcing himself with his journal to constantly reset his mind that things are okay. And I'm grateful for this, and therefore things are okay.
You know, that's funny. You mentioned that the heart math device. On our podcast, we did a show, actually
Finding your
inner balance.
Yeah.
And so if you go to liveforeveryoungradio.com, or you can go to boomerboost.com. It's that's the company that Bob founded. We do nutritional supplements. We also have all of our podcasts there. So if you go to boomerboost.com and look for the tab that says podcasts and blogs, you guys can actually check out the show we did on the inner balance. It's called Finding Your Inner Balance, and it's a device that actually works with your cell phone. Mine just went off, so you know I have it. It works with your cell phone, and you clip it to your ear, and it'll give you what they call a coherence reading by what's it?
It's measuring your heart rate variability.
Heart rate variability. Thank you. It measures your heart rate variability. And so really what you're telling me G did is he found a manual way to kind of do this instead of using the phone.
Yeah. So the idea with the phone and the clip that goes on your ear, that's what's eavesdropping on your heart rate variability, communicating it to the app on your cell phone, and it's showing you in a little mandala where you stand at that moment in terms of your heart-mind coherence.
Right.
And then it allows you to focus on things you're grateful for, sync your breath in a rhythmic fashion, and watch the mandala as your brain changes and your heart rate changes. And so what G is doing is he's constantly reinforcing this metabolic pathway, which goes from your amygdala, which sends a signal to your frontal cortex that either says things are okay or they're not okay. And then that signals your heart muscle.
And where's your amygdala? Where's the amygdala?
The amygdala is in your brain,
right?
Right around here.
Okay.
And, it's part of another, section of your brain, a larger section of your brain. And it's kind of in charge of managing your mindset, identifying if things are okay, not okay, signaling your brain,
right? Which
then signals your heart muscle, and your heart beats according to how you're feeling about things. And so if you're constantly doing gratitude, you're making what we call a gratitude stack. So G's notebook has got one piece of gratitude stacked on top of another, and it keeps you in this positive feedback loop where, because your heart's beating differently, it's signaling your amygdala things are okay, which is signaling your frontal cortex things are okay. And so now you're in this constant generalized readiness to believe that things are okay around here.
Right. And you'd mentioned that, so you said the amygdala kind of controls how your heart beats when you're feeling certain ways. I mean, I could definitely, when you get scared, your heart starts pounding, so that's that's that connection right there.
Yeah.
And then so if you have if you are always on edge or of the readiness to believe things aren't okay, that heart's going to beat accordingly.
Yeah. So a good thing to really, take a look at is, am I stuck somewhere? So sometimes people get stuck on one particular belief. Okay. So you have a lot of people that will have a belief that things are not okay because of this. Okay. Because of the war, because of this thing that's going on in politics, and it's just not tolerable, and so things are not okay, and you have this belief, right? So if you want to break free from that, so it's easier to spend time in gratitude, so you're not dragged down by this one harsh belief, you can use the emotional freedom technique.
Yes, we talk about that all the time.
Right. And so that works for current events types of stuff. It also works for things from your past, but it's very easy to do. So say you have this constant recurring thing that's happening to you day after day. You're watching the news, you're listening to the radio, you're having a discussion, and you get triggered. And it's like, oh man, if that's just terrible. That's awful. All right. And it happens over and over and over again. So you're in a bad mood almost every day.
Mm.
Right. That happens to a lot of people. So you need a pattern interrupt.
Right.
You can use your meridian system. You can tap on your fingertips, 5 times approximately on each finger. You can tap on your karate chop point like this. And then as you practice, okay, you get really good at just simply tapping. And then you can use a phrase to reprogram that particular belief to soften it, to release the death grip that you have on it.
Right.
And this belief is coming through filters, right? And so human beings tend to delete, distort, and generalize things.
Right.
So they'll delete evidence to the contrary of this awful thing, right? They'll distort it where they'll make it worse than it really is, or they'll generalize where they say, oh, well, that is just like this.
Mhm.
Therefore, I'm angry again.
Right.
And so knowing that that's what human minds do, you can use tapping to break that cycle. And
Right.
so you would say something like, even though up until now, I thought I had to continue to be upset every day because of what I'm watching on the news.
Mhm.
I completely love and accept myself anyway. And I'm so grateful now that I realize, regardless of outside circumstances, I have the ability to create the paradise of my own choosing.
Mhm.
And I can feel at complete peace about the whole thing.
Right.
You can cross your hands on your heart and
Right.
breathe in. Drop your hands and your chin down and breathe out. You'll feel an immediate sense of relief. And now you'll be able to say, now, what am I grateful for?
Mm-hmm.
Because
That's very true.
as you release that anxiety, now it's easy to choose what to focus on.
Yeah.
It's hard to choose what to focus on if you're wrapped up in this sequence of filters that are leading to a belief that you have this strong grip on.
Mm.
So how are you going to notice that you're grateful if
With
you're
your
tense
whole-
like
yeah,
this,
yeah.
right? You're contracted
Right.
like this, okay? Now, we're contracted enough from events from our childhood,
Right.
okay? And, Alexander Lowen was the psychologist that really talked a lot about this. And he would say that, especially in the Western world, when a little child is born, and as they start to get a little bit older, they have this thing where they like to reach out with their arms and hug people around the neck.
Okay.
Right? And they also can reach things on the table that you never thought they could reach.
Mhm.
You thought that cup of milk was out of their reach, but that little child reaches it, and you're like, how did they reach that? Okay. And the reason is they're fully reaching. They're capable of this big reach, and what they're reaching for is connection,
Mm-hmm.
interaction, connection, and a feeling of security, safety, and love.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But in the Western society, there's a certain percentage of people that are uncomfortable with that. They're not huggers.
Right.
I've seen this with parents in extreme fashions, where the child reaches and they get this sensation of pushback, like, ooh, that's a little too close. I'm not comfortable with that much hugging,
Mm-hmm.
right? Even though it's just a little child.
Right.
And so the child picks up on that. And the next time when they go to reach, they don't reach quite as far because they're trying to create a match.
Right.
They're trying to create this match between acceptance and rejection, right?
Mhm.
And now if they still get pushback, then they reach less, and they reach less and less and less.
Mm.
The extreme example is if you see a child in an orphanage that's been put in a crib and just left there with very little human contact, they contract all the way down like this, and they rock back and forth all day long in this position of contraction.
Mm.
Okay. So Lowen said that to a certain degree, many people have this contraction in their system. Okay. And so they end up going through life in a very fearful fashion, and without being able to reach for everything that they want in their life. They've been conditioned not to.
Mm.
Right. And so these techniques like tapping and like havening in
Right.
particular can help break people free from these contracted energies that have come from this set of beliefs, from their filters, that are holding them back from participating in the spirit of springtime, the spirit of Easter, the spirit of resurrection, and the spirit of
New life, and joy.
revitalizing your own soul to move forward. And so,
That's awesome.
There's these bioenergetic therapies, some created by Low and some by others,
Right.
that people can participate in.
Yeah.
And certainly tapping is a form of bioenergetic therapy that helps people to get started to release that death grip.
Yeah, you mentioned havening. That's actually another one that we actually just had an interview with Hillary Russo. We have a 3-part interview. Actually, the first part's out on Live Forever Young Radio and boomerboost.com. It's actually also available on our YouTube channel. I have the first episode up now, where we talked to
lady.
Yes, we talked to Hillary Russo, who is a great, amazing woman, holistic health coach, havening practitioner, integrated nutrition specialist, and she is, she's one of the people that can help someone who might have not been able to reach out as far, and
she has a story she tells us on
Yep.
that interview about an issue related to her and her dad. And her dad had passed away, and she was having a hard time dealing with his absence. And then she talked about using havening to break free from that and to free herself to be happier.
Yeah, and she, amazing woman. Her podcast with us is up on, like I said, our YouTube, and there's some information there. If you guys are interested to see, her Hug It Out program is actually something she created, and it really helps with people, teaching them and showing them how havening works and the type of things it can help you with as far as your mind and your body. Very good stuff. Very good stuff. So
she has her own podcast as well.
Yep. She has a podcast called Holistically Speaking. And if you go to Hillary Russo, it's Hillary with 1 L, hillaryrusso.com, you can actually learn a lot about havening and a lot of other really great practices that'll help with this type of thing too.
Yeah, she's amazing. I'm glad we had that chance to interview her.
Yeah, the episode 2 is going to be coming out within about a week or so. I have another episode 2 of 3 of hers coming out. So definitely make sure you guys check that out. It's really, really, really enlightening.
Raleigh, one other thing that's real important that's been getting a lot of attention recently is the whole issue of social support. There's been some studies that show that there are all these factors that could be perceived as negative that would make people be less healthy than otherwise. Smoking, sitting, being overweight or obese. They can easily say, if you are one of these things, here's what's likely to happen to you and with your body as you age, when you're going to die, what type of disease you might get before you die. It's pretty easy to predict. Okay. But what they didn't realize was that there was one thing that can kind of trump all those other aspects, and it's social support.
Really?
And that people who have strong social support, their family, their neighbors, their church, their synagogue, when they have this strong sense of social support, they tend to live a long time and be super healthy regardless of the rest of the things.
That's interesting because, I mean, you talk about the physical issues, the blood pressure, the diabetes, the obesity. I guess those are quantifiable, right? Those are things that you can quantify, so you can kind of predict based on habits and, what we've seen before. But this whole variable of social interaction, how does that even, does it chemically change the way the brain works? How did they do research on that? What is the difference there?
Yeah, when they know from the research on isolation and depression, they've been able to document right down to the electron what's occurring in people who are isolated, loners that don't have a social support system. And they know that ultimately it leads to higher inflammation.
Really?
Yeah. And so you can conclude the opposite, that people with social support, first off, their hormonal system is going to be different because they're the people that are going to tend to be of the belief that things are okay.
Right.
All right. And so their amygdala, frontal cortex, heart muscle, metabolic pathway is functioning well. Right?
Oh, hey, thank you, Patricia. We just got a comment from Patricia. Thanks,
All right.
guys. Wonderful discussion today. Well, thank you very much. Yes, we were just going over some information, talking a little bit about social anxiety.
Yeah. So people can make a plan for this. Really, they could say, okay, so I want more social support or a better quality social support.
Mhm.
So the first thing you have to do is take stock.
Mm-hmm.
What is your social support right now? What's your relationship with your friends? What's your relationship with your family? And do you feel there's room for improvement? And if so, what exactly would it look like to have better social support? Okay. So one of the things you can do is simply take a piece of paper and right in the middle of the piece of paper, put in social support. Write it down. Right. You can even just put the 2 initials if you want. And then you're going to put stuff on the left side and you're going to put stuff on the right side. So on the left side, you're going to write down the reasons why. Why do I want more social support?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Bob and Raleigh just told me it'll make my health better.
There you go.
Okay. There's number 1.
There's number 1.
Number 2, it's the kind of thing that I know will make me feel happier if I get out of the house more and like this. So
Yeah.
you list the reasons. Then on the right side, look out into the future a little bit, right? Future pacing. And you say, what are the feelings I'm going to have that are positive as I have better quality social support?
Mm-hmm.
What's it going to feel like to me? It's going to feel like a relief. It's going to feel like I have less anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more peaceful. It's going to make me feel accepted. It's going to make me feel valued. Right?
It's going to make me feel productive.
Yeah.
I like being me. I like to be productive. I like to always get something done.
Yeah. So this is a technique you can use, and then you can decide, okay, where is it that things are wrong where I could make an improvement in social support? Okay. Well, I haven't been getting along, very well with my cousin who lives right down the street, and it's because of this or that. Okay. So this becomes one of your get it done things. I'm going to first off prepare myself. Then I'm going to invite my cousin to do something. Right. So what are you going to do to prepare yourself? Well, why haven't I been getting along with him? Right. Well, because he's always saying this or saying that, and it makes me feel bad. He doesn't like the way I dress. Okay. So this is holding you back. So do some tapping on this.
Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. Do some tapping that says, even though up until now, I thought I had to continue to let my cousin's criticism of the way I dress bother me, I completely love and accept myself. And I'm so grateful now that I realize I can laugh it off and have a great time with my cousin anyway. Mm-hmm. Right. And so this now is an action that you took that sets you up for a higher likelihood of success in going out to do something with your cousin. Right. Well, now, what are the things that you like about your cousin? Mm-hmm. Focus on what you're grateful for. He's got a great sense of humor. He always helps out with my kids when I need something, right? Mm-hmm. And make that part of your list.
So build a gratitude stack around your cousin, right? And then one of the things we talk about that's really helpful when you actually go to talk to the gentleman is our nonviolent communication.
Yeah.
We did a show about that called How to Use Nonviolent Communication. And you can check that podcast out on Live Forever Young Radio or boomerboost.com. But that nonviolent NVC, that technique, Offner is how you refer to it. And I'll let you explain what that means. But there's a technique. Offner is the, what do they call the thing?
So are you an acronym?
Acronym. I can never remember acronym. Right. That's the acronym. And Bob will explain what that actually means because it's very good for communication.
Yeah, and especially if you're going to meet with your cousin, it's good to have a new way to communicate. And this is a communication technique that helps you relate to the other person's feelings.
Right. It's all about the feelings here because a lot of times people talk and wait for the other person to stop talking so they can say what they want. They don't know how to listen.
Right.
So when you listen for feelings, I'm not doing a good job of listening to you right now. I'm sorry.
You're fine.
I'm
You're fine. Keep going.
you. But when you listen for and you look for feelings, that's where the true communication happens.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah. No, and so the O is for observe, right? And it's observe without judgment.
Right. No judgment.
So you're just listening to the other person. Listen with your whole body. Face the person. Look at them. Nod when you agree. Right now, you're really listening. And you're listening for how you think they feel. Okay?
Right.
Yeah, the information's important. We're going to go and do this. We're going bowling Friday afternoon. Yeah, but usually their conversations have more to do with social things that are going
That's
on.
true.
And if you can say after the person has finished speaking something related to their feelings, it seems to me you're feeling
excited about bowling,
or it seems to me you're feeling depressed about what came out of the news yesterday.
Yeah.
And so now you're going back to the feeling. Now that person is either going to confirm or deny. They'll be like, well, yeah, that's true. I am feeling that. Okay. Or no, I'm not feeling that. I'm actually feeling more like this. Oh, okay. So you're not feeling angry. You're feeling discouraged. Right. And so then the N in the Offner is the needs. So you're anticipating, what might I do that's a need of the other person that will make them feel better? And so you can suggest, sounds to me like maybe you need this. Maybe you need a break from the news where we can all just have a good time bowling.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the person may say, yeah, I would need that. Or they can say, no, but I'll tell you what I really could need is, I just need to go out and have breakfast and talk about positive things.
One of the things I found with this technique is that don't ever be afraid to say the wrong thing. Like if you perceive that they're feeling a certain way, don't be afraid to say, well, I think you're feeling angry, because that's a great opportunity for that person to clarify that and open that line of communication with you.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like, even if you're not sure how they're feeling, you can open the conversation. Well, I think it seems like you're feeling kind of frustrated.
Yeah.
Right. And they'll be like, no, I'm not frustrated. I'm excited and kind of annoyed, but frustrated is not the right word. I'm more annoyed because I'm having a problem with this one little thing. And so that feeling, that clarification of feeling, takes them to what the real problem is. It's just this one little thing.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
Yeah. And when you say, well, it seems to me like you might need this, the answer could come back, well, I don't need anything. I just appreciate you listening to me.
Right.
I wanted to get this off my chest.
Yes. I actually had a conversation with my dad about that very similar thing. He didn't really need anything. He just needed to sound off.
And that's a need. You say, well, that's great. I'm happy to accommodate this. Now, the last part is R, which is request. That is a reasonable request or a respectful request, or both.
It can't be something out of this world. Because
sometimes, especially if it's in a close relationship, the person might want to say after this conversation, well, I would like to request this of you. All right. And if it's reasonable, you can say, yeah, well, I can do that for you. And, now the conversation can move to the other direction. There's something I wanted to get off my chest, and I have a request for you. Right. And so now, as both parties begin to learn how to use nonviolent communication, it brings the relationship much closer together.
Right. And that's a good thing to know and use. Like, we just had the Easter holiday. A lot of the times families get together, Easter and Thanksgiving and Christmas. This is a great tool to bring with you. Bring the NVC tool with you. That way, when Aunt Flo or Uncle Marty over there, who's always down or dragging it down, you can talk to him. Maybe try to get him to be more joyous and joyful anticipation of the future. That's what we're talking about. You got to joyfully anticipate things.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
so the social support piece, really important.
Yeah. So
how much more time do we have before
we got about 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
Yeah, let's go over another couple. Let's go over a couple more things. What do you got?
Good. Yeah, so we talked about the whole issue of habits, because what happens sometimes is people will say, all right, it's springtime. I'm going to get moving. I'm going to start exercising. I'm going to watch my diet. I'm going to release some weight. I'm going to clean out the garage.
Get rid of
whatever it is.
my junk.
Yeah. And that's all good intentions, but they're not in the habit of doing that.
No.
They're not in the habit of exercising, eating properly, etc. And so it's good to have a system that will help you to change your habits.
Mm-hmm.
And we did a show on
Tiny Habits. Yes, it's called How to Build Tiny Habits. It's actually, if you go to liveforeveryoungradio.com or boomerboost.com and go to the podcast and blog section, you'll be able to find that. It was really good, where we talk about a technique. Who's the BJ Fogg? I was like, I think it's BJ.
And that's the name of his. That's the name of his book.
BJ Fogg's Tiny Habits.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah. So this has its own acronym, ABC.
I was just going to say, I know there's one for this one. I believe it's just simple as ABC because it's simple, right?
Yeah.
It tries to keep it simple.
Yeah, and so the C, we'll start backwards this time. The C is for celebrate.
So, yeah, it's always fun to start with the celebration. So let's go that way.
Yeah, so C is for celebrate because we know from research that if people celebrate a success, they're much more likely to repeat the things that led to that success.
Amen. Look at the Rays, 10 in a row.
Yeah.
History-making win.
Right.
You know what I mean? They celebrate after every game.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why you see the crazy dance in the end zone when someone scores, or with the soccer player, or the football player.
Football.
Right. They have this thing where they slide on their knees.
I love that, man.
So these are celebrations, and these are natural human tendencies, but there's also a lot of psychology to it.
Yeah.
What's celebrated gets done.
That's right.
And so you want to always make sure that you have a small celebration. Say it's an exercise goal that you have, and you've gotten up, you've done your exercises, and you're finished, and you want to celebrate some gesture of your own. Yes, I did it. Clap your hands, raise your arms, whatever it is that you feel like doing to celebrate is what you want to do. Okay. Now, the B is for a behavior. It's a new behavior that you want to install, or it's an old behavior that you don't do enough of.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if the behavior is exercise, okay, then you want to have a plan for that. So you want to make it easy.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were to get up off the couch to exercise, what exactly would you do?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. Don't say I'm going to get up and exercise and then be like, I'm up.
Now what?
Yeah. Get some weights ready or whatever.
You want to spring into your action. So if you're going to exercise with stretch band, you need to know right where your stretch band is.
Where's the ball? Where's the medicine ball?
If you're going to gym, you need to know right where your gym clothes are.
Right.
They need to be laid out so you don't have to search for them and go, oh man, all my stuff's in the laundry.
It's true. And, we talk about, anything that's an extra step or something that causes friction when trying to complete something is that much likely that you're not going to do it. So remove the friction from the process.
Yeah. And the A can be any number of words, but essentially A is an action or an event that comes about. All right. So if your commitment is, hey, I'm going to exercise every day at 7:30 at night.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So this action that's happened is 7:30 has come about. Right.
That's the trigger.
And you know the behavior that you want to use.
Right.
Okay. And so one on diet, right, is people will come home from work. The first thing they do is they go to the refrigerator.
Yep.
And what do they take out of the refrigerator? Whatever is at hand that they think is going to make them feel good.
Mm-hmm.
A bottle of juice, a bottle of beer, some ice cream,
some soda
pop, right? So, and if you want to change that action that has stimulated it, which is I came home from work and I opened the refrigerator, you have to make the new behavior either that you're not going to open the refrigerator and you're going to go put on your gym clothes, or if you're going to open the refrigerator, what is at hand is healthy foods.
Coconut water.
Yeah, as opposed to bad foods. So you have to make this action step to change what's at hand in your refrigerator.
So it's not just the action, it's the prep of the action, right? You got to
Yeah.
set yourself up for success. Preparing to fail is failing to plan.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
You're preparing yourself to fail if you don't have the plan, or vice versa. I think that's how
Right.
it goes. I don't know.
And so once you've got a system, once you're ready. So say it's exercise, you say, okay, 7:30, I'm going to exercise. All right. So my plan is I've got my exercise clothes laid out, my sweatpants, my exercise shirt, my socks, and my exercise shoes.
Mhm.
Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out for a walk with these little hand weights that I'm going to do some exercise with. And I'm going to do it for 20 minutes. Okay. And so you've got that part done and you're ready to say when you're done, but you're still on the couch at 7:30.
Mhm.
And you are like, oh man, I'm watching this documentary about ancient aliens and it's so interesting. I'm just going to watch it till 8 o'clock and then I'll go. All right. So, or you're just feeling lazy and you're lying down. It's like, wow, I don't feel like getting up and going to do all that. I'm comfortable right here on the couch.
Right.
Okay. So this is where you use tapping.
Right.
Tapping is like magic when it comes to implementing new habits because you can tap like this. This is so important if people knew this. You tap and you go like this. Even though up until now I thought I had to continue to sit here on the couch transfixed by this ancient alien show or had to sit here on the couch like a lump on a log.
Right.
I completely love and accept myself anyway. And I'm so grateful now that I realize I'm getting up off the couch and going to get my exercise clothes on.
Right.
Boom. That tapping right there will get you off the couch. It is like magic. It's like you don't even have to finish tapping before you notice that somehow you're standing up and getting up off the couch. It is a magical technique. And what that can do is if you've got your ABCs lined up and you have your intentions set, it will get you there. It will create the transition bridge that's needed from the couch to the exercise clothes. You got to cross this little bridge to get there.
Right.
And the tapping makes that bridge come right before your eyes and makes it enticing to walk across.
It's like, I think it's because you're actually identifying the thing that you know you shouldn't be doing. And instead of just sitting there and thinking about, man, I really shouldn't be doing this, you're presenting the other option, which is
you're presenting
get up
another
and go.
option, and you're using verbiage that overrides the belief you have at that moment.
Mhm.
That getting up to go and exercise is more painful than sitting here. Okay. And so by using the phrase, even though up until now I thought, right? So what does that mean? Even though I thought this, I love and accept myself for thinking wrongly. And this is the truth.
Right.
So even though up until now, you've drawn a line in the sand, right?
Up
Up
until
until this moment, I thought that I had to continue to sit here on the couch.
right.
Not continue to sit here.
I
I
thought
thought I had to. Okay. So even though up until now I thought I had to continue to believe I have to sit here on the couch. Right. Now that is a magical phrase, right? And then you're switching to a feeling, an emotional sense. I completely love and accept myself. Even though I used to think this, I love and accept myself anyway. And I'm so grateful now I'm getting up.
Mhm.
Very powerful. And when you tap while you're doing it,
That's
it's
activating.
activating your meridians, which is having an effect on what's going on in
On
your
the-
brain.
And this is like a physical trigger too, right?
Yeah.
You know, you've got the mind working in the thought process, but to activate it with the meridians and to do that, it gives it, it's a great, what do they call it? It's a great amplifier.
Yeah.
It amplifies the
Yeah.
effects of that.
Yeah.
I should know that. I play guitar.
Yeah.
Amplify.
There you go. And so this is the way you can combine tiny habits together. And if people get the book, the Tiny Habits book, watch our podcast on it as a shortcut because
Right.
it goes through it and summarizes it in more time than what we're spending here today, gives more examples, right? But then you can also watch the podcast on the emotional freedom technique,
Absolutely.
or I think we call it tapping.
Yeah, it's called the basics of tapping. I'm pretty sure.
If
Either
you
way,
type in
just
tapping
type in
in the
tapping.
search,
You'll
you'll
find
find
it.
And if you combine those two together, now you have this way to really participate in a very effective manner in your spring into health, your Easter attitude
Gotcha.
of revitalizing your physical body, your emotions, your soul, using these modern day techniques. These are techniques that were created by the best psychologists in the world. BJ Fogg is a renowned psychologist who's created systems for the betterment of humankind. And when tapping came about, when Gary Craig decided to begin teaching people tapping that he had learned from another psychiatrist who had kept the technique sequestered for many years, right?
Yes.
And he released it. Gary started teaching people, and people like us learned to do it, realized how effective it was, and now we're able to share it on lives like this.
Absolutely. And also, like we said, if you guys want to know a little bit more about tapping, we also have some instructional videos on our YouTube channel. You can go look those up. They have their own playlist. You can actually find the basics and the beginnings of tapping, and then tapping for the immune system, tapping for weight loss. That you can use tapping on a lot of different things. And so definitely check those things out. Our YouTube channel is Boomers Forever Young. It's actually Boomers Forever Young on our YouTube. Our Facebook is Boomer Wellness Network. And we also have our Live Forever Young Radio Facebook page that everybody should be able to see this. So we got about 2 minutes left. So I think now would be a good time to say, hey, if you guys need any help, if you ever want anything as far as, good topics, things that we want to hear us talk about, send us an email. You can email us at boomerboost@boomerboost.com. You can also come on and join our podcasts live. We're going to be doing this it'll be on Facebook Live. It'll be on YouTube Live. And I'm going to be adding TikTok Live back in here soon. I have to do that on a phone in front of me instead of on the computer. So I'll have that going for the next one, which should be Thursday.
There you
So
go.
yeah, you guys, we're going to do another one Thursday right around 11 a.m. We were a little late today. We're about 10 minutes behind. So that's why we're going about 10, 15 minutes over right now. But it'll be 11 a.m. EST. And I don't know what the topic will be, but it will be something worth tuning in for. I'll tell you that.
Thanks, Raleigh. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Hope you enjoyed it.
Have a good one, you guys.